begin this episode, I would just like to say that the next episode of JWA Fixes is going to be another case of me drawing your fictional species. Watch the whole video in order to get all the details necessary for your submissions. For your information, I am a huge fan of Beyblade. I have been a fan since the days of Metal Fight, and still a fan of it today.
I am also a fan of Pterosaurs.
And I have always dreamed of a pterosaur-themed Beyblade, which, eventually, we did get one. But why stop at one pterosaur Beyblade when you can have multiple?
Even though that opening stated I was going to make like a Pterosaur Beyblade, it's more like I'm making Beyblades into Pterosaurs, so that kind of defeats the whole purpose of the intro. Anyway, it's another episode of JWA Fixes, and you probably get the idea. Throughout the past few episodes, I have been making a lot of Apex Pterosaurs, inspired by a bunch of Beyblades from the Beyblade Burst time. So now we're finally going to see... I've done artwork for them before, but now we're going to see them completely redone, just to see how different they are. Starting with probably the first Apex I ever made, Valkyrie Dawn. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I did not bother thinking about the meta when making this anymore. I mean, I buffed it a bit, but it's like, it's relatively the same. Its abilities, the thing is, all of its abilities are based on, like, Valtryek abilities throughout the course of the show, such as Brave Sword, Genesis Reboot. This one's all the way back from Genesis Valtryek, or in Japanese, God Valkyrie. Either pronunciation is correct, it doesn't matter to me. In fact, Valkyrie is the name of the actual Beyblade, but then in English it's called Valtryek. The Beyblade in English has this weird thing, this weird system of renaming things. Like, some of it makes sense, like changing Aqualia to Eagle for simplicity's sake, but then at the same time changing Phoenix to Fireburn. It's a whole thing that I could talk about it for like 8 minutes or so, but we don't have time for that. Flash Launch, this is a new one. Break shields, remove taunt, bypass armor. It's another alert ability. I was really hammering in how alert this creature is. Spring attack, increased damage by 15%. Rush launch. I'm kind of skimming through it because honestly, abilities are the last thing I care about in a dinosaur anymore with this game. So after a bit of planning and experimenting, I finally got to work on making Valkyrie Dawn 2.0. The first one already looked pretty good, but it was based off of Victory Valtryek, and this time I wanted to make it based off of Ultimate Valtryek. Now, in terms of major differences, the only things that changed were the head, which is now based off of a part of Valtryek's damaging wing, as in the attack wing, which makes a pretty nice Pteranodon head, mixed in with some patterns from throughout the rest of the Beyblade, which is actually the patterns on the face are also from the attack wing. The bottom jaw is made from one of the patterns, which is meant to represent a 1 on Valtryek. Secondly, we can see that 15 appear on the wing, which is the second major difference, which is the difference on the wing patterns. That they have the 15 and some random V's, which are also just thrown onto Valtryek, which I think is supposed to be part of the helmet or something. Other differences include, like, removing specific features on the head and the wings, and removing the yellow patch on the belly. Everything else is pretty much the same. The feet are still, the legs are red, and the feet and hands are still yellow. But other than that, that's enough about the design. Let's talk about the lore, which has gotten a bit of an update since we've last seen it. The first in a line of special Apex creatures, this mighty pterosaur is streamlined for maximum speed and rapid pecking attacks. Rumors state that its crest contains metallic properties, leading to small storm clouds following it around. This combination of speed and power would make Valkyrie Dawn a top predator of the skies. However, it doesn't seem to be very smart. It seems to share a brain cell with a boy named Voltoy, the inspiration behind the creation of the big blue pterosaur. Rumor also has it that Valkyrie Dawn is a slightly altered genome from the more popular Tyrannochairi. While it could easily defeat its toucan-esque cousin in a fight, Valkyrie Dawn's low intelligence forces it to live in its cousin's shadow. I'm not gonna lie, this is my favorite of the designs this time around. This one, it was just so much easier to just incorporate all the colors and patterns into everything. Like, every single piece of Valkyrie you see here is based off, is like directly pulled from the Ultimate Valtryek design. All of those little V's on its wings are from that little crown on the Beyblade. And then the 15 labeled here, that is actually a little Easter egg that Ultimate Valtryek was supposed to pair with Burst Spriggan. And they were both supposed to say 2015, which was the release of the first Burst Beyblade. Which is like a cool little Easter egg, and I included it onto the wing as well, which can just also pass as like a cool looking Thunderbolt pattern. And then it's just a very nice, appealing color scheme for this Beyblade, with all the warm red, the dark red, the cool blue, the yellow, and the eye. It's just my favorite out of all these Apex designs. In fact, it's just one of my favorite Apex designs, period. I think it's up there with Deku Mimus and Pakitar. It also helps that Volt is just one of my favorite Beyblade characters ever. And as the lore stated, it is not a very smart creature, so I could just imagine him and Volt just getting up into wacky scenarios where he's just training, and then this thing flaps its wings and somehow sends the original Valtryek, the Beyblade, flying through the sky, and Volt just becomes devastated about it. But it's time to move on to the second Pterosaur in this video. If I can just type it in, I think this is, yep, there he is, Drain Fafnir. The name is just Drain Fafnir, but I could rename it just Fafnir or something, because Fafnir, I'm remembering the lore, if I'm remembering it correctly, the lore is just that it's a dragon of some kind. I don't know, there's a lot of dragons in folklore, but either way, he's pretty slow. I think he used to be fast, but I decided to completely rework him to be a much slower kind of creature, to work like, to be more akin to the original Beyblade, which is kind of like the Phantom Orion Medio El Drago combination, except way more successful because it actually has the weight to back it up, as far as I'm aware. Basically, it's a left-spinning stamina type that will drain your stamina because of the rubber wings and whatnot, which just makes it spin faster and faster, which has always been one of my favorite concepts for a Beyblade. And so, since it's a stamina type, it's gonna be really slow. But the way it works is that over time, all of its abilities just help it become faster. Like Nothing Break here, which is another really cool thing about Fafnir, like the original Fafnir. That was just one of my favorite Beyblades from Evolution. Just seeing how even it's a Beyblade introduced early on, but it just gets stronger and stronger as the show goes on, up to the point where it's like, whoa, it just unlocks so many new abilities. It's so cool. Speed Up Shattering Impact, Mirage Claw, Drain Spin, Powerful Counter Heal, Shattering Swap in Wound. You can tell me if that's OP or, like, not meta relevant at all. Again, I do not care about meta anymore. I'm here to talk about designs. And if we look at the original Fafnir design, it was basically, I just looked at Fafnir's avatar and just tried to give it Pterosaur proportions, but it really does just look like a dragon. Which, not really what I was looking for. But I gotta be honest, as this new drawing I've made looks even more like a dragon, so I guess I failed on both hands. I gotta be honest, even though it's one of my favorite Beyblades, it's not really my favorite design. It just, the head does not work for a Dimorphodon-esque build. Like I said, this is supposed to be a tiny creature, and I just turned it into it's just the head of a dragon dropped onto the body of a Pterosaur. And it looks kind of goofy looking, it's not gonna lie. In fact, I even prefer the original, because at least it has, well, actually, no, not really. The neck kind of ruins it. There's some, I guess I could have incorporated some features from the original onto this new version, but this is the version I'm stuck with, so let's introduce Drain Fafnir. Fafnir may look like a dragon, but upon closer inspection, it's actually a small pterosaur with enhanced dragon-like features. They are a common sight at BC Seoul training grounds, and are often seen observing Free De La Hoya as he trains for his next Beyblade match. Due to their docile nature, they are the most easily trained in this line of Apex Pterosaurs. They are even known to approach people without vicious intentions. It is also worth noting that these animals are very lazy. Instead of actively hunting, they perform tricks for people in hopes they'll be rewarded with food. So, Free is just another one of my favorite Beyblade characters. Like I said earlier, just like he starts out, like he's introduced early on. Most characters at that point, like Honcho, will eventually get weaker over time just to make room for newer, stronger bladers, just to advertise the new Beyblade and make it look like, oh, you gotta go buy that. But Free, that was different. He was introduced early on, and he stayed strong throughout all of Evolution. It just took the rest of the seasons to really nerf him down. But he's always remained one of my favorite characters, so of course I was going to turn his Beyblade into one of my apex creatures. And I've always imagined that this is just one of the creatures that would just like, I've always had this envisioned of like Free just extending his arm, and just one of these perched on top of it, and he's just smiling. They're just vibing. Because Free, even though he's strong and tough, he's also like, he's got a soft spot for this deer that just lives nearby. And he's great friends with it and all, so I just imagine this is like another one of his little animal buddies, and I thought, that's pretty cool, which is why I made these guys, even though they look super aggressive and scary, they're actually just, they're just little lazy guys who just want to get a good meal every now and then. But there's not much else for me to say about Fafnir here, so we're going to move on to the next one. Even though there is another creature that I made before, I'm actually going to go over the newest creature that I've never covered before, that I made specifically for this video. Because this is like the last one that I want to talk about. You've seen it before, but redesigning it was kind of a chore, so I'm going to save it for later. As for now, we are talking about the Zainreborn. The Zainreborn. Pretty hard to say. I think this is my first Flock Apex. I've made Flocks before, but never an Apex, so this is kinda new for me. This is obviously based off of the three main characters of Beyblade Burst Surge, or in Japanese, Beyblade Burst Sparking. Hyuga and Hikaru's Beyblades, Hyperion and Helios, as well as Lane's Beyblade, Lucifer. In fact, if we look at the abilities, we'll see they have abilities that all of them have. Twin Impact is alluded to the two brothers. Limit Break Burn is part of Hyuga's Hyperion. Vexing Wall is from Lucius. Darting Counter is just like that, that's just a regular move in the game. Solar Launch comes from Hikaru's Beyblade, Helios. My idea was like, I'm not going to make a Pterosaur for each and every one of them. So I decided, hey, let's just make one Pterosaur, like one species of Pterosaur, but they all look different. Yeah, I'm not sure how well that plausible that is in real life or anything, but you know what? This is, I'm making up my own story here, so it really doesn't matter. Design-wise, these were actually probably the easiest, because I know that even though the profile looks like it's a Prionodactylus, but I decided I wanted to go for the Anorognathus to really make these guys look different. And because they're so much rounder and bat-like, it was just so much easier to incorporate certain features. They were already very plain looking, so all I had to do was add specific features like a little crest on top of their head, and a little tinier crest on the side of their head, and some features on the back, patterns on the wings, just get wild with the colors, make sure they reference the Beyblade they're representing, and just rinse and repeat with the other two designs, which was like, they all have different patterns, but they all have a crest on the top of their head and on the sides of their head, as well as some sort of pattern on the back, although you cannot see Helios' pattern on his back because he's in the position he's in. I only did one pose for each of these because I didn't feel like doing 3 separate drawings for 3 different creatures. It really wasn't that important to me. But otherwise, I had fun making these the most. Well, actually, I'll be honest, Valkyrie Dawn was the most fun. These guys were probably second most fun, and I actually think they turned out really nice, compared to Fafnir, which again, was just a dragon. Now let's get on to the little story I made for them. These 3 miniature pterosaurs look very different from each other, yet they are all the same species. The blue one appears to be the leader that comes up with strategies to assist in hunting and gathering. The purple one acts as the lookout, keeping an eye open for predators. The red one tends to act on its own, often rushing into dangerous situations, putting all 3 flockmates at risk. Nevertheless, these 3 somehow make a perfect team. The boys who trained them constantly bickered about what to name the species. It eventually came down to a choice between Zainreborn or Hyuga Boom Boom Saurus. The choice was obvious. Now, Hyuga, Hikaru, and Lane, they're not my favorite characters, but, it's not like they're just characters I don't think about as often as, like, Free or Vault or any of the other characters I'm really attached to. They're okay, but since they're main characters, I decided let's give them a pterosaur as well. And I ended up with 3 Pterosaurs. Now, the question is, which one do I like more? That is kind of hard. I have to pick between this little red guy, this chubby little red guy, the blue one, or the purple one. I think the purple one is the least interesting, but that's mainly because of the pose I gave it, and also because, out of the 3 of them, Lane's probably my least favorite. But I would say I think Helios is the one that looks the coolest, but it's really hard for me to decide which one I like more. Either way, I'm really happy with how these 3 flockmates turned out, even though I did not draw any of them with any teeth of any kind. Probably because they have small needle-like teeth, and I couldn't figure out a way to do that without just making little lines and making it look really stupid and goofy. Anyway, we're on to the last one, and again, it's one you should already know if you've seen all the past 3 episodes. There he is, Sprigonopteryx. Stats, it's got like a lot of health, or like what used to be lots of health for a dinosaur, or like a creature this far in the game. It has defensive peck, which I think I made just for all of the Asdarkid animation guys. Axe launch, which is I think the rest of these are all just, instant shielded strike. I don't remember adding that one. There you go, you can take a read at what Axe launch does. You can also take a read at what Requiem Rampage, I believe this was meant to be a very OP move at the time. Cleanse all negative effects. Heal 0.5, bypass dodge, attack ×2, automatic swap. Not as strong as other moves, but then again, this game just loves making moves that can just do everything that makes every other dinosaur look irrelevant. Counter break, Crux boost, on escape rampage. I really wanted this to be the best creature in the game at the time, because at the time I had only seen evolution, hadn't I? Like Beyblade Evolution, Beyblade Burst Evolution. And the strongest Bay of that time was Spriggan Requiem, or Spriggan Requiem, depending on what language you speak, or like which version you watched. So, yeah, this was meant to be OP, but I guess nowadays it's really not that strong at all. But either way, as for the design-wise, this was kind of tricky for me, because this was, unlike the others where I actually drew them out, I actually did a digital drawing of this one previously, but it was on an old app that really wasn't that good. Now I was using Harmony this time with like proper proportions and whatnot, proper tracing thing, even though the old one was also obviously traced off of another Quetzal drawing. This one was based off of a Dominion Quetz, which is honestly pretty similar to real-life Quetzes. But the trickiest part was just trying to figure out a way to incorporate Spriggan design choices onto this Pterosaur, because before, I think it was mostly based on the avatar, like at least what Spriggan Requiem was, his avatar back then. And this new one, I was trying to do ultimate, burst Spriggan, but it just wasn't working. I just couldn't incorporate any of the designs. It's why I was trying to do this one second, but I just couldn't do it. It was just so difficult to come up with any of the designs. Eventually, I did come up with something, but that was only after I delayed it and I did the other ones first. And eventually, I did come up with some designs. I kept the hair, I changed the crest, I changed a lot of the patterns on it, honestly, but the color scheme is relatively the same. And I also replaced its front hands with these weird knuckles that was found on the Beyblade itself, which makes this kind of odd-looking design. But still, I really can't tell if I like this one more than the original one I made. But you know what? I'll let you guys decide after I introduce its lore. Designed to be the strongest pterosaur in existence, Sprigonopteryx is strong enough to break bone with its beak and fling away attackers with a single wing flap. Its call can be heard from miles away, striking fear into the hearts of any land dwellers. This mighty pterosaur only follows the commands of an individual known as Shu Kurenai. Employees have spread rumors that the two can communicate telepathically. Many people usually shrug this off, but upon closer observation, the two spend a lot of time staring at each other in silence. But the real question is, who's in charge? Shu or the pterosaur? This lore is 100% based off of Shu's character arc in Beyblade Burst Evolution, where he becomes so obsessed with becoming stronger that he ends up letting the soul of Spriggan corrupt him, and he becomes one with the Bay. And that's why this whole thing is like, oh, who's the trainer here? Is it the boy or is it the dinosaur? Pterosaur, you know what I mean. Either way, this design is like, Asdarkids are kind of hard to I guess it would be easy. I'm kind of stumbling on my own words here because this one was just so difficult to do. Like, if I was to rank all of these in terms of hardest, or like easiest to hardest, Valkyrie was the easiest. The Zashi were all second. Fafnir was third because that was where it started to get really difficult. And Spriggan, I was just completely stumbling on myself. I guess because I was trying to do another thing where I was trying to take the blades of Spriggan and use it as a beak, but it just didn't work. It didn't look natural for a Quetz to have that kind of thing. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Either way, it's a giant as Darkid that's meant to dominate the skies and whatnot. The design is like, I'm kind of like back and forth on it. I think it turned out all right. I definitely like it more than Fafnir's final result, but I feel like I could have done a little bit more with it. Either way, even though design is kind of iffy for me, I do love the backstory I gave it and the lore. And that's it. Those are my Apex Pterosaurs. That's not all of my Beyblade-inspired creatures here. I do have an Achilles-inspired Ankylosaur, but that's an Ankylosaur, not a Pterosaur, so I'll have to save that for another day.
The video's over? We're done talking about Beyblades? Okay. I have a few rules about what to do for the next episode. First of all, if you submitted something for the last episode and you were in that last episode, then please wait 2 or 3 days before submitting something so that we can give other people a chance to have their submissions in the next episode. I can only do 4 creatures at a time, so I want to make things fair for everyone and not just do the same people over and over and over again. Secondly, we had a lot of apex predators in the last episode, so this time the submissions should be herbivores. They can be overly aggressive herbivores, but just as long as they're primarily herbivores. Ceratopsians, stegosaurs, ankylosaurs, sauropods, any of those. And once again, the creature needs to be fictional. Whether that's a hybrid or some special apex is up to you, just as long as it's not a canon species like, what's a regular dinosaur? Metrocanthosaurus or Megalosaurus, that sort of stuff. Now to submit is quite easy. First you just gotta join my Discord, link in the description down below. Then you gotta find the JWA Editions channel. Once you're there, ping me with your paleo.gg creation, and be sure to include 2 descriptions. One description basically describing what the creature looks like, colors, shape, specific features you want for your hybrid or apex, and a backstory or like just something describing what the creature does and behaves like, something for me to read when I show off your creature in the next episode. That's about all the details I can think of. Tell me which one of these Apex Pterosaurs is your favorite, and if you would like me to do more Beyblade-inspired dinosaurs. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video from beginning to end. If you want to see more, subscribe to the channel and join the Zainreborn community. See you in the next one. Bye-bye! Bye! Bye!